Alright, so if you guys are here, that means that you have picked the Create a Poetry Book project. And I'm just going to go over a little bit of the directions and the checklist with you today. So for this option, you will be creating a compilation of original poems that you will write. So we just gave you some links here to help you start looking at what poetry books are and give you some examples of what kinds of poetry you guys could write for your books. So we want you to choose to write from one point of view of a character within the novel, or choose to write from the point of view of multiple characters. So for instance, you could choose to write from the point of view of Natasha and only do poems from her point of view, or you can choose to do poems from, let's say, Natasha and Daniel, and you can write poems from both of their point of views. So your written poems will deal with the during and after of the novel. So what we mean by that is that some of your poems will be able to take place actually during the novel, as if Natasha, say, was writing them right during the scenes of the novel, and then some of them will take place after the novel ends. So after we see the last chapter of Daniel and Natasha leaving each other for the last time. So some of those will take place after the novel. So this means that you will have the ability to create and or change what happens in the life of your characters. So you're pretty much making your own future for these characters. So we want you to name and design your poetry books. Again, you can look through these links that we provided you here to get some idea of what poetry books kind of look like, or you can just create your own design. So we're going to ask you to write 14 poems in total, and so only 7 of them can take place during the novel, and the other 7 will have to take place after the novel. So these poems, you want these poems to further develop the characterization of the characters and also enhance our understanding of the novel by using conflict and point of view. So you want to start thinking of how can you create conflict, bring in new conflict, and then really get into the point of view of your character to help us understand those characters better. Your poems should have a purpose. For example, you could communicate a message about what the character is feeling or going through. And then in addition to your 14 poems, you are going to include one additional poem from an outside source. So we have linked this additional poem right under here. And what we want you to do is we want you to include this poem in your booklet and then have one of your 14 poems answer this poem or talk back to this poem. So you could, in that one poem, you could talk about what is talked about in the additional poem. You could kind of make a reply to that poem. And this is a good place for you to discuss your character's destiny, because this poem does have a lot to do with destiny. So in addition to that project, we will also have you guys write a short essay that answers our essential question, which can be found right under here in this blue text box. So we want you to answer our essential question of, to what extent do we create or control our own destiny? So you will talk about how you view it and how your views have changed, and then you will use the novel to analyze and discuss your views on destiny by comparing and contrasting your views with other people's views in the novel. So again, we want you to provide and cite 5 pieces of textual evidence to support your claim about destiny. And then we also want you to discuss how your poetry book contributes to this concept of destiny. So down here we have a checklist. Now this is really helpful for you guys as you're going along with your project, so you can start checking off these boxes and seeing what else you have to do. So it would be a good idea to start this right away once you have chosen this option, once you've chosen your characters or one character, and then go through this checklist and make sure you have everything completed. So we do have a word minimum on some of these poems. We also have down here the checkbox for you to include that additional source in that additional poem in your booklet, so don't forget about that. And we also have you submitting first drafts of your poem booklets and second drafts of your poem booklets, and that's just for you guys to get some feedback before the final draft is due, which will be due on May 4th, and that is when you guys come to UW-Stevens Point and visit our campus. So yes, we can't wait to see what you guys create, and if you have any questions, please let us know.